probably agree on.
Yeah, the playoff team for sure.
So do you.
I mean, I tell you what, I don't think there was a more accurate state. And
if they struggle again, I mean, I don't think there's any way you can keep Alex Critch. But
what's up, y'all? I'm Bud Elliott. This is another episode of Summer School. We're going to go to school today on TCU. And to do that, I'm going to bring on my man, Jeremy Clark of Horned Frog Blitz. Jeremy, welcome back to the show, man.
Excited to be here, man. This is always a fun thing to do every year. I love it. I love it.
I love doing it because I like going to school, doing my homework on these teams, and then I feel like I learned something. Like, oh, damn, okay, like I didn't realize that they were counting on that guy. Like that's good to know. Or always finding new things to learn about these teams. TCU plays for the national championship in 2022. Kind of a big step back last year in the record column. Maybe a little bit less on the field. A lot of close losses that could have gone their way and didn't. Let's start real positive here. Is there anywhere on this team that when you're out at practice, you're like, oh, they're a lot better here than they were last year?
I hate to say it because I love the guy. I love Joe Gillespie, but I really feel like they're going to be better on defense with Andy Avalos. I think one thing you look at from the last two seasons, even as good as they were in 2022, that side of the ball was a big question mark. I think everyone still has that leftover bad taste in their mouth from the 65-7 loss to Georgia. I hate to say it, TCU fans, it's still on my mind as well. But if you look at the last 2 years, the defense was really the biggest question mark. And with Andy Avalos coming in, now you have a more aggressive style on defense. You have blitzes coming from all different angles. You have guys that are on the field that are athletic enough to be dominant in this defense. But when I look at the defense as a whole, and to answer your question, Bud, the position I'm excited about the most is probably linebacker. Nnamdi Obiazor's coming in. He had an all Big 12 top year in 2023. You've got Caleb Elarms-Orr, which is one of the most coveted transfer linebackers in the nation. Chose TCU over Ohio State. That was a huge get for them. You've got Johnny Hodges coming back. Anytime you have a guy that's working in the second team on defense in spring camp, you know he's a great linebacker, all Big 12 top linebacker. He's working second team. There's some depth there. Shad Banks didn't go through spring camp. Another big-time linebacker. They've got some younger guys that are developing. And I think when looking at this defense as a whole and really this team roster as a whole, linebackers where I look and get the most excited about because I feel like with that new defense, that's going to be the guys that are making the most plays.
Who was the guy on that side of the ball that maybe us national guys or even some of the regional guys that they're not talking up for preseason all Big 12 or preseason All-America that maybe they should be?
I think it's Nnamdi. And really even TCU fans kind of discount him a little bit. But when you look at what he was able to do last year as a junior, he led the team in tackles. He was making that transition from safety down to linebacker. He's athletic. He's 6'3", 225. This was a guy that was under-recruited in high school because he was 5'11", 180. Now he's 6'3", 225. Talk about blooming in college. But he's athletic. He's fast enough to cover receivers. He's not afraid to come downhill and make the big hit. He's very smart. If you look at what they did in spring camp, he was the linebacker between him, Elarms-Orr, Johnny Hodges, all those guys that were rotating in and out at linebacker. He was the one true constant. He never played on the second-team defense. He always got first-team reps. I think Andy Avalos loves what he can do as a linebacker, and he's the guy that I really feel like at the end of the year, he's going to be the linebacker that we're talking about the most and quite possibly being a first-team all Big 12 top linebacker.
Is linebacker the position where TCU can most afford to get into its depth?
Absolutely. I really feel when you don't have a guy like Shad Banks that we never mentioned during spring camp because he was injured, he's a guy that has made plays throughout his career. He's not as athletic and flashy as the other guys. He just makes plays. He's a 6 foot, 252 pound linebacker. He's deceptively fast. He's smart. He lays big hits. Everyone remembers a couple years ago when they went down to Austin, they were without a couple key guys. He made a lot of good plays in that game, in that win over Texas. And obviously everyone remembers when he was a true freshman, got that game-clinching interception against Baylor over the number 10, top 10 Bears at the time. But I really feel like if they do go down any position-wise, linebacker's the one that I'm really not concerned with. I feel like they really, truly have 6 to 7 guys that could go in there and make plays. It's only two linebackers now, but you still have the stud position in Andy Avalos' defense that's utilizing the defensive end / linebacker. Devin Dill, the transfer from Tulane, has come in and made some good plays. Marcel Brooks is the former 5-star. Every spring, it's always the question about Marcel Brooks. I think this defense is perfect for him. I think he made a lot of plays this spring. And so when you look at the stud position, linebacker position, top to bottom, this is a very talented group.
Jeremy, give me a first-year starter that you have a lot more confidence in than maybe, from afar that we would.
First-year starter. Are you looking on offense or defense? Does it really matter for you?
Let's go dealer's choice.
I'm going to go offense, and I'm going to go with a guy that people are going to be talking about at the end of the 2024 season, Cam Cook, former 4-star running back. TCU had some big questions at running back going into spring camp. Not only did they have to replace Amani Bailey, who declared early for the draft, you had to replace Anthony Jones, who was regarded as one of the top running back coaches in America. He's at USC now. You bring in Jimmy Smith from Arkansas. You wanted to see what kind of running back coach he was, and you got a group at running back other than Trey Sanders, who was the transfer from Alabama last year. Really just an inexperienced group. But Cam Cook came in. He didn't get a lot of carries as a true freshman. He made some explosive plays this spring. He's a guy that has explosive speed, can run between the tackles, can take a 5-yard gain, 65 yards to the house, which he displayed plenty of this spring. He's versatile in the receiving game, did a great job at pass protection. So if you look at the roster and you think of a guy that's going to be the first-year starter, he's not penciled in officially as the starter, but I would be highly surprised if he's not the guy getting the first carry of the year when TCU travels out to Stanford to open the 2024 season. But even Sonny Dykes has been very complimentary of Cam Cook and how good they think he's going to be. But keep an eye out for that guy.
Another guy I wanted to ask you about is the receiver McAlister, who came over, much like Avalos did, from Boise State. How has he looked so far for the Horned Frogs?
He's a huge get. I mean, if you look at the transfer portal in general for TCU, they brought in guys that have played a lot of college football. Out of the 19 guys that enrolled in January and participated through spring camp, only one of those guys, Braylon James, former 4-star that spent 1 year at Notre Dame, he was the only guy that did not have extensive college game experience. So every guy from top to bottom had a ton of game experience. And when you look at Eric McAlister, before he hit the portal last year, 9 games into the season, he was one of the most productive receivers in the nation. I think at the time he was the 7th leading receiver in college football in total yardage. So what he was able to bring into that receiver rotation, he played primarily at Z in the spring. He's a guy, those 50-50 passes, he's going to come down with them. He's a long kid, 6'4". One of the spring scrimmages they had, he had 3 catches for almost 80 yards. They were just basically throwing the ball up to him and letting him battle against those defensive backs. And he's a guy that has deceptive speed. He's going to be a goal line threat. He's going to compete with Dalen Wright. Dalen Wright was kind of hit or miss this spring. He's recovering from an injury. But anytime you have a guy like Eric McAlister that has the length that he has, that has the deceptive speed and the pure jumping ability, you've automatically made your offense better.
I think that is an underrated get that they got that work done in the winter window. Because if you look at the availability of like a bigger bodied, red zone threat type receivers in the spring window, it was slim picking. You really had to kind of, there were some guys that were good, like running for catch guys, and there were some guys who were maybe a little bit bigger body, but behind the scenes, a lot of schools I know had some character or fit concerns perhaps, which is interesting to me because McAlister hit the portal like during the season, and then he goes to the same team that Avalos went to, right? Like that's, I guess those two didn't have beef, or do I have the timeline wrong on that?
Well, he did hit the portal during the season, and whether they had beef or have beef still, it seems to be over now. Bygones, let bygones be bygones, I guess is what they say. And Malcolm Kelly did a tremendous job recruiting him. And the big thing for TCU and Eric is he's from Azle, Texas. For those that don't know where Azle is, it's a small town. They play Class 5A D1 football, same district as Alito, which I know everyone knows where Alito is. But Azle's only a short drive from TCU, so it's real important for Eric to get back home, be around his family, be around his friends. And when you talk to him, he's all smiles. He's a very personable guy. He loves being at home. He'll go up to the elementary schools here in Azle, just have lunch with the kids. It's something that he always used to do as a high school student athlete, and now he's getting to do it back home, and now everyone knows he's at TCU. People are going to want to go out and watch Horned Frog football now that are from Maysville, that, generally are more of your Texas Longhorn fans, your A&M Aggie fans. They've all of a sudden got some purple in their wardrobe now, and they want to go support Eric. So it's big for him to be close to home.
So the guy throwing to him will be fill in the blank.
Big question. Josh Hoover seems to be the guy. He's the guy that came in for Chandler Morris last year, and it was kind of funny. And I don't remember if I said it on your show last year, but I know I've said it somewhere. I said it on the message board somewhere, but I was being told by some pretty prominent people, like, hey, man, if Chandler goes down, don't be surprised if Josh Hoover comes in and doesn't relinquish the reins. He may be the guy that is going to be the guy of the future. So what we saw with Josh Hoover last year, very limited, 6 games. Everyone remembers that BYU game, his first start, throws for 440 yards, I think it was. Struggled a little bit against Kansas State, which we've all seen. Quarterbacks struggled the first time in Manhattan, playing up there in that environment. But I think overall, when you look at the overall body of work with Josh Hoover, it was very positive. He's a guy that ran the offense well, deceptive speed. We all know Kendall Browse likes to have a running quarterback a little bit, but he did not go through spring camp. That could be a negative. So when you look at the overall body of work with Josh, he's only got 6 games under his belt. Ken Sills, the Vanderbilt transfer, everyone looks at Ken and says, well, he wasn't real successful at Vanderbilt. Who's been successful at Vanderbilt playing against the toughest defenses year in, year out in the SEC? And Ken was able to get over 20 starts in his college career, holds the Vanderbilt record for true freshman passing yards in a season, and I think passing touchdowns. Ken played really consistent football for TCU this spring. Didn't turn over the ball a whole lot. Looked like he was in that offense for several years. It did not look like he skipped a beat. And I asked some guys around the program, hey, is this a position where you guys feel like you still need to go out and find another guy? And I was told immediately, no. They've been very satisfied with what Ken's able to do, with what true freshman Haas Haney's been able to do. So I think when you look at going into fall, it depends a lot on how improved Josh is recovering from that injury. I've been told he's coming back in June. He's going to start throwing the ball around, start doing some more active things during the summer. But we'll see how he comes back from those injuries. So it's going to be interesting to watch the quarterback battle come August.
Non-quarterback battle, what is the one position battle that you are most looking forward to covering in the fall?
Man, I love the cornerback room. I really feel like they did a great job of bringing in some quality transfer players. They lost Josh Newton to the draft. They have Avery Helm coming back. Channing Canada's coming back. But I wouldn't necessarily pencil them in as guys that are just bona fide starters right now. I think Avery Helm had a really good spring. Channing Canada missed some of the spring. And I think the guy that everyone should be talking about is Lamarian James. Lamarian James from Old Dominion had a very, very good spring. He's kind of reminded me of those old cornerbacks from TCU's past. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy, but everything you ask that guy to do, he just goes out and does. He was probably the best cover cornerback of the spring when it came to one-on-ones. I couldn't tell you how many times I saw that kid breaking up passes, or even in pass skelly 7-on-7, that guy's making interceptions. So he's not a big guy. He's probably about 5'10", and that's a stretch, but he's very physical. He's got great hips, turns and runs very good, and he just makes plays on the ball. He's got tremendous ball skills. So I look at that position, and I'm trying to figure out, is Avery Helm going to start? Is it going to be Channing Canada on the other side from him? Is it going to be Lamarian James on the other side of him? Is it going to be Travis Broughton, another transfer from Utah that has a lot of college experience? So I think the cornerback position is one that I really liked watching in the spring, and I'm going to love watching again in the fall. But I would tell you right now, keep an eye on that James kid. He's got some skills.
So with the Big 12, we always kind of take a peek and say, do you have the 4 conference road games? You got the 5 conference road games. So this is, I believe, one of the years that TCU has to play 5 conference road games, and they only get 3 of the bottom 6 according to the Vegas odds. So the schedule's, it's not crazy hard, but it's certainly not like the most favorable draw that you could have in the new Big 12. in your mind, what has to happen for TCU to make it back to the Big 12 title game?
I really love the schedule. I love that they got. I think UCF can be sneaky good, and I love the fact that they got them early on, third game of the season. They're playing them at home. I think road games at Kansas and Utah are going to be very telling. When I say it's funny to say Kansas in that manner now. Kansas, they're playing at Arrowhead Stadium. They don't have to play in Lawrence, but I still remember Kansas is a team that we're talking about now that you're using them in the sentence of competing for a Big 12 championship. And they've got arguably the best quarterback in the Big 12 coming back. So I think that game on the road in Arrowhead Stadium is going to be very important. I think going on the road in Salt Lake City, playing Utah, it just brings back those old Mountain West rivalries they used to have between TCU and Utah. Kyle Whittingham is arguably one of the top college football coaches. I think that's going to be a very telling road game for TCU. I really feel like they can be undefeated going into that game at Salt Lake City. I'm really glad that they have home games against Oklahoma State. I'm really glad they have a home game against Arizona because I feel like the games that they're really going to be competing, it's going to be a league of parity. It seems that gap seems to close every year, it seems. But I love the fact that some of these games, they're going to have a chance to play at home. Oklahoma State, if it was in Stillwater, I wouldn't feel so confident. But I really feel like playing them in Fort Worth is going to be a very good sign for TCU. I feel like playing an improved Arizona team. They've got some guys coming back. Yeah, they lost their coach, but they've got some key components coming back to that squad. And playing them at home is going to be very important. So I really feel like if just not getting back to last year so much, but 2023, they were 5-7, and they were 9 points away from being 8-4. Yeah. So can they score with this experience they have coming back on offense? Can they score one more touchdown? And that's the difference. And I really feel confident with that schedule. But I do fear those road games at Arrowhead Stadium against Kansas, at Utah, and the last road game of the season for them at Cincinnati. I don't know what Cincinnati is going to be this year. I really don't. I don't fear going on the road to Baylor. TCU has never, ever had a problem going down to Waco and winning since they joined the Big 12. I love that Texas Tech is another game they get at home this year. If it was in Lubbock, I'd feel a lot different. So I really feel confident about the way the schedule plays out. And honestly, I see this team right now as being an 8-9. That's the 8-9 win team, and that's the floor for them right now. But it's a lot of football to be played, bud. So we'll see how it goes.
No doubt about it. Hopefully Hoover gets right, and the Horned Frogs have it all year.
Yeah, that's a big thing for Hoover. If Hoover's good, then the offense will flow. But even if Hoover's not good, I still feel confident in a guy like Ken Seals to get that offense going.
Absolutely. Jeremy, I really appreciate the time, everybody, for awesome TCU content. I mean, obviously, go check out Horned Frog Blitz. They do a great job.
Appreciate it, man.